to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Ebro, Laura, and Rosenberg. Jeff and Eric from It's the Real are here.
Yeah.
But they're really here about something called the blog era. The podcast.
Yes.
Is that the title, right?
Something called, it is the blog era.
The blog era.
Yeah, it's a 10-part podcast series that we've been working 3 years on, and it is finally out in the world. And
bruh, they asked me for something
$5.
20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then they sent me like a clearance form, and they were like, "Hope you remember what this is about."
Yeah.
By the way, I like that so far Ebro's appeared once in the podcast, and you literally cursed more in your 3 sentences than anyone else has on the entire podcast.
I don't even remember
My
what
favorite thing is, so this comes during a segment talking about DJ Drama and Don Cannon getting pinched. Episode 2,
right.
Where, they had this whole mixtape world that they were running. They were the most popular guys, the most effectual guys. Like, there was a whole ecosystem around DJ Drama and his product. And then the RIAA and Georgia State government come down on them, and we talk to you about the aftermath. And my favorite thing is that you have this very cogent memory of it, and you talk about like what it means, and then you end it like prematurely and just go, "Come on, man, y'all know what it is."
No. I think he curses there too. He's like, "Come on, y'all know what the fuck is going on." That's literally how you wrap up in like a documentary form podcast.
Oh my God! Now, for the audience, can you guys kind of break down how the podcast is going to be laid out, what you're covering?
For sure. So we look at it as like, prestige television on HBO Sunday nights. You want to get like that full hour-long episode. That's what we're doing. Every week you get 1 episode. The first week we gave them 2.
Yeah.
But every week hereforth, there are 1 hour-long episodes. We talk about 2007 to 2012, right? The peak years of the blog era. So all the artists that you can remember back then who are running pop culture today: Drake, J. Cole, Wale,
Kid Cudi.
Nicki Minaj, Mac Miller, Dom Kennedy, all your favorites, Charles Hamilton.
But they all came from these like group of websites, this community that like was all run by anonymous people behind keyboards that like nobody knew. And so from there, it's just like this huge scatter effect,
Yeah, so it's really, we're talking about the American dream, right? You build something that doesn't exist before. In this case, it's a platform for all these voices who are unheard to have a light shined on them. And it's about the blogs and how they ascended, and then ultimately how that was snatched away.
So, obviously, we know Miss Info. Miss Info was here.
Of course.
Yes. We know that one. I remember you heard that news.
That's right. Shout out to Low Key.
2 Dope Boys.
Yeah,
2 Dope
of course.
Boys.
Shaking that
Whatever
NahRight.
NahRight.
Whatever happened to Smarten Up Nas?
Oh, wow.
I feel like, the person behind that might be working on another podcast right now.
So you don't want to mention it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right where you go.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, and one of the things I think about the podcast, and it's up to episode 3 as of when people are seeing this, they're up through 3, next week will be 4.
Yeah.
Is like you guys are telling very specific stories in each one. Episode 1 really focuses on Joe Budden.
It does?
Yeah.
Why was Joe, in your guys' eyes, so important a piece of this story that he was episode 1?
I mean, so Joe he's a major artist. He's in the like model of the next Jay-Z. Like there's a system that's in place where you get signed to Def Jam and like then you become a star. And then all that sort of breaks down around the introduction of the internet, with Napster. And so Joe is interesting because because there's a lot of people who like don't make that jump from the real life to digital. But Joe is somebody who embraces the internet very early on and is able to evolve with the internet as time goes on.
Well, let's walk through it, right? Because he had the deal and had a couple of hits.
That's right.
Then the world starts to go into a whole different direction with downloading and labels, not sure what's happening. And next thing you know, Joe's got a full-on relationship on YouTube. Like, they were doing a full-on show.
Don't skip, because they include, in the podcast, they include his being on Hot 97, too.
Oh, yeah. Well,
so Joe's story is, like, vastly interesting because...
Joe's my fault.
Yeah, that is.
Also Peter's.
And also mine.
Shout out to Tracy Clordy.
Big shout out to Tracy. Yeah. But, like, Joe is in that model that Jeff was talking about, right? If you're an artist in or around New York City at the end of the century, turn of the century, there's one way to get on, right? You mixtapes, You want to get yourself hot in the streets, and then hopefully some mix show DJ is going to put you on Hot 97. And then when your record really gets going, that's when a record label can like get in there and move this whole thing. So you want to be on Hot 97. You want to be in the pages of Double XL magazine. You want to be on BET and MTV every day. And then when that system doesn't work anymore, that's when Joe was like, but I got this whole fan base online that these people in the big buildings do not see, do not recognize, do not admit is there, and doesn't have the staff. Today, what, 15 years, 20 years later, it's just commonplace that everyone understands the internet. You have a whole digital team. Everyone knows how to trick the algorithm.
And that's rather new, by the way.
Yeah.
That's like in the last 5 or 7 years.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right when you talk about like Joe Budden TV. And Joe used the internet to give himself, and the internet helped Joe, give him a second start, right? Because if you are Joe Budden in 2007 and you're dropped,
what's the backup option? It's like there's Koch, I guess, but 50 was calling it a graveyard.
But even then, it's just like major label artists are sort of like looked on as like a loser at that point, right? You had your shot, you didn't make it.
So yeah, Joe is the quintessential pivot guy.
Yeah.
I guess, able to, figure out any platform.
Yeah,
it was wild too when you said the thing about how many, like he sold like 100,000 the first week, and that was considered really disappointing.
Yeah,
is also so interesting just alone.
I know.
Now, if you sold 100,000 first week, the label's they're renting out all of Say Less. You're popping champagne. They're going. Where are they going?
What?
That's a huge.
Who knows? They're buying the top of the rock.
Yeah, 100,000 is insane, and that was considered a huge disappointment.
Yeah,
and I'd totally forgotten that his album was completely sort of tanked and submarined by the soundtrack that they'd released.
The Fast and Furious
soundtrack.
Yeah.
They put Pump It Up on Fast and the Furious a month earlier.
I didn't know that.
It sold 350,000 copies.
Yeah.
And I dare you to remember something else that was the reason it would have sold.
Yeah.
And then they dropped Budden's album, and it still did 100,000.
Yeah. And listen, a lot of people know us from our like podcast that we did for 5 years called The Waste of Time. All you guys were on it. We had a great time, 90-minute conversations. Everyone got used to that idea of us. Pandemic hits, and we're like, we probably shouldn't have strangers over to our apartment and their friends over to our apartment sharing this airborne disease, right? So we're like, let's finish that and launch this new thing. And so we got on the phone with you, Ebro, who knows how many years ago, but had a longer conversation that we found the story within that and use that alongside 149 other people and are telling this story in a very like oral history fashion.
Yeah, it's very.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
The blog era for me, because I always as radio shrank, right? And we used to be able to, somebody who wanted to come up in radio, gets an overnight gig, they run the board, maybe they answer the phones, maybe they're, mixing on, the mix master weekends or whatever, they get a little early morning look, and then over time they start to build up. But then as, these companies, or these radio stations got taken over by larger companies, and then companies started to downsize. I mean, we don't even have anybody to answer the phones, right? Like, we don't even have places.
Yeah.
But we don't have places to start a person who has interest in media.
No question.
And that's what the blog era was. But, me, I'm not embracing these dudes. I'm like, yo, fucking blog era. Y'all don't even go outside. Y'all don't even go to fucking clubs. What the fuck do y'all know about what's going on, really, really going on?
Yeah.
Now, granted, some had great music taste, and I trust Miss Info, and she's the one that was like, nah, these people really, and shout out to Jazz Fly, who was someone else, Recipes Jazz Fly, who was someone else that embraced a lot of these young, I guess, hip-hop journalists who didn't have a place to go and were like, nah, I care about this music and what's going on in this culture enough that I'm going to start my own thing even if I don't make money doing it.
Low key from You Heard That New.
Right.
Went to college and like dreamed of being Funk Flex.
Right.
That wasn't his path. His path was not to be Elliott Wilson. His path was not to be, Joe Budden. His path was, all right, I'm going to start a website. Maybe I'll grow an audience. I know I have good taste, but like my avenue isn't going to be at Hot 97.
Yeah.
So he created this whole platform, this area, and
it's led to a career.
It led to a career now on the radio.
And full circle. Yep. Now it's interesting. You guys haven't gotten to it in full yet, at least through 2 episodes and 10 minutes of the third.
Yeah.
But you tease that you're going to get into a lot of the podcast. The backdrop of it is about SK, who runs NahRight.
Yes.
And he does not talk very often, and you guys finding him that's part of the one of the interesting notes of the podcast.
Totally.
Is hearing from SK.
Yes.
But also you tease that you're going to talk to Nation, who worked on NahRight also.
That's right.
Who you guys say in episode 2 of the podcast, Drake, the biggest artist on planet Earth, was essentially able to become Drake because of essentially an unknown guy named Nation.
Correct.
Who did the blogging on NahRight.com. Which to me, journalistically, that was already, just pointing that out, I was like, wow, that's a fascinating thing I didn't even think about.
So you got to think about what NahRight was, right? This is New York, this is grimy, this is like loving Mobb Deep and Biggie and like, you know, real hip hop head stuff. And this was like, you know, way different from that. This is a singer / rapper / you know, half black, half white, Jewish guy from Toronto, Canada. Child actor from Toronto, Canada. Like, that's today. Everyone's like, of course, yeah, I'll go up to OVO Fest. Like, that is a mission that I'm going to do. Back then, it was just like, oh, really? Like, I don't want that type of rap in my life. And that rap wasn't getting played.
People didn't even think that was rap.
Right.
People were just like, what is this soft shit?
Yeah, that is true. With the singing, is the rapping, what is Drake? That was a whole conversation.
So if NahRight is all Styles P and you know, Havoc,
Sean
Price, definitely. If it's all that, then you need someone from the inside. So Nation, who is SK's number 2 at the website, you need someone to be like, I co-sign this. I'm really pushing for this. And Nation was a high schooler who was getting into trouble, who just needed some sort of relief from that, who loved this website more than anything, and gave that cosign. And that's what Drake was looking for too. Like Drake wanted the approval of like real heads. And he got that from that site. And that is what really, you know, gave him that push to legitimacy.
This is exciting, but I cannot wait for the Misinfo episode.
Yeah.
Only because I just remember before I became friends with Misinfo.
Yes.
I just remember that was my go-to, misinfo.tv was my go-to. But I also, when I started working at Hot 97, I just remember how careful she was, how she was very, very adamant about making sure that she had facts. She had artists trusting her, hitting her up to clarify any rumors. And she would get it like, I remember before she would cut her little bits for Funk Flex, she would just be, I remember her pacing, waiting to get that text or that call to make sure that everything she was putting out was legit.
No question.
And she had a special trust with artists that I have never seen before. And
Maybe
now,
sense.
at a time where people just write whatever on the internet, any flagrant lie, they'll be like, let's just go with it because they'll get clicks. That was not her.
So a lot of people consider this time the Wild Wild West. You know, people were reckless out there. People were not fact-checking. People were just saying whatever they want.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Right. And it flew, right? And people like sort of liked that and embraced that. But like
still do.
But Misinfo was so different, especially because where she came from. Like, she was a tried and true journalist.
Right.
Like, that Nas 5 Mic review was her. Right? She wrote it as Shorty, but that's her. And she worked her way into a position of trust. And when she wanted to expand what her brand was, but also like the interviews that she would do on here, it's going to be cut down, right? You can only air so much in between segments. She wanted a place where you could play it in full, give context to something, write what she really felt. If she went to SOBs and caught like whoever, Kanye, Q-Tip, and whoever else showed up at a show, she wanted to write her real feelings about that, and that's what that site became. And people were like, I trust her, and I feel like I know her more. And that's why, like, her site blew up because it's authentic.
Isn't it wild? Now I'm just thinking about it, though. We're talking about Misinfo, and we're talking about SK.
Who came in here because of Sway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Sway brought her here.
Oh,
We had
really?
Sway doing mornings.
Didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
When you had Info and SK and several others in this Wild Wild West period, it's interesting now that what's gotten really big, they were sort of the forefront. What's gotten really big in this era of the internet is literally people who fact check nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, the point is just saying salacious, crazy stuff.
Going back, to days here at Hot 97, one of our biggest issues always was the fact that that we would crack jokes that people never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Right. And so you have a whole era, right, which was, what was the site? Media Takeout.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Nicole
which was a
Bitchie,
Wendy
remember?
Williams thing,
Yeah.
Which was a Wendy Williams thing. And Wendy Williams, it was all rumors.
Yeah.
Well, she made it entertaining. Where we got to now today is a direct product. And really even more so than that, when you go back and you look up at like tabloid news, right? Which is European tabloid, celebrity tabloid news, which was all rumor stuff. So even before Wendy Williams, that was like a mainstream pop culture thing that seeped its way into kind of hip hop, because hip hop became popular news.
That's exactly right.
Well, so there's this thing where, like, there's this first wave of people who do this thing purely out of love for a culture, a subculture, really. Like, this is a small group of people. And then you see them get popular, and you get the copycats who come in. And the copycats don't have those same ties to culture. And so everything sort of gets further and further away from the actual love of this thing to, I just want to be popular, I just want to be famous, I just want, like, that quick check. It's the same thing with, like, everything that happens in music. We're so far beyond the,
rooftop parties and
1970s, parties on the block parties.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so far beyond what that thing is. Now it's like this commercial endeavor to just try and get a quick check.
Well, and it's indicative of anything that gets extremely popular.
Yeah.
If we're being honest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everything that we've loved that comes from like some real cultural, essential kind of human experience that then gets very, very popular. Corporations come in to monetize it, and they use metrics. And then when that money starts to flow, people who want the big check are willing to give up culture and integrity for the check.
So that's why this podcast is not only about culture and about nostalgia, but it's also about capitalism. And it is, like I said, about the American dream, right? Like, it's a 10 episode arc. So a lot of stories, weave in and out. We like to consider it like...
it's like Game of Thrones, but with a better ending.
Yeah. But
it is very Game of Thronesy.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's super important, and all these kids at the time, Wiz Khalifa, Currency, everyone who was there who didn't have a platform was given one, and then this thing just rocketed off.
Listen, go look for it. The blog era.
You will
podcast.
enjoy it. I give it the full cosign. I'm like dialed in. I haven't been this way about a podcast in, like, ever, where the episode comes out and I go and listen.
So it's like, what is it? What's your other favorite? This American
Life.
So This American Life blog era.
Well, but I can't keep up with This American Life. There are too many episodes and it's too heady. This is more right on my...
Also, we're here to fuck This American Life up.
That's right.
That's right. They're taking out This American Life.
Ira Glass, we're going down.
Yo, Jeff, Eric, love you guys.
Love you
man.
too. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.